it's more informal. Like, I don't even want to call it a podcast, and we won't even necessarily publicize this, but it's like we're having all these conversations with like founders and thinkers who are doing things that are mission adjacent, similar values, similar kind of vision. And I think building up the ecosystem around that is just such an opportunity. And there's so many of us that are pulling in the same direction. I think we actually connected through Jess, right? Jay Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
She's awesome.
Wow. She is, man. She's so passionate about the community wealth thing, and it's beautiful to see.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to hear more about you and APEX DAO. I've got 1,000,001 questions about DAOs, if you don't mind me asking a few.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I give you like the, the short version. I don't know how much you've watched in my videos, but like this is my new account. I had another account with like 30,000 followers,
Wow,
and I got suppressed for holding truth to power.
What did they get you for? Was it a particular video?
I had 3 videos go viral. One was like talking about boycotting Starbucks, but I also did a lot of stuff around Free Palestine. So, so you never know. Like there was a bunch of things going on. So it was one of those.
Yeah, it's
I got mass reported, and then it just like crushed my account. So it's like, why bother?
Right. No, I hear you. It's wild to me that we can't criticize what's going on in the world without it being labeled anti-Semitic, like it's so not a racial thing or a religious thing or anything other than like people need to stop killing each other. Like it's so simple. And the fact that we cannot say that, and it's not safe to say that, to me is indicative of some much bigger problems in America in particular, but also the world at large.
Absolutely. And we could go off and talk about that for hours, literally. But yeah, it's by design. So taking the manufacturing consent as well as like the whole, they banned the ability to boycott, or suppress things before you can even do it at the state level, right? You can say whatever you want against America, but you can't criticize Israel. That's freaking brilliant. I hate it, right? But I respect it. They took away your right to boycott before you even got a chance. So,
Oh my word.
Anyway,
oh my word.
Yeah. So real quick on me, I spent about 25 years on Wall Street, under Wall Street, like really like developing like pretty cool algorithms around sustainability. So I was like early on there. And then I got to travel all around the country, all around the world, working to build out all these different algorithms, ranking systems, teaching grad students. Like it was great. But, after a while, like wasn't really making the impact that I thought I would. And just overall, all of us weren't, because it was getting a lot of momentum. And then every time you get momentum, and I'm sure you're going through this, it gets suppressed and then it gets crushed. And then they take that word ESG and all of a sudden, it's the boogie word, just like DEI. I saw the same thing happen over and over again. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to get into politics. Well, and then I worked on presidential campaigns for Andrew Yang, and you see getting crushed by the DNC. Like you ran into all these, unmovable forces. And then you understand where the real corruption lies. And every time you think there's another layer behind it. Like I didn't know about Zionism or anti-Semitism or all that stuff around, APEC. I didn't know. Now when you know that, like, that really makes sense. And got into civics, got into polling. But the throughput has always been in tech and always been an independent, like a fierce independent, both from voting to critical thinking to everything. So when I was doing tech, especially around sustainability, I always embedded in the maximum amount of things I could do for gender equality, the maximum things I could do for diversity, and they would just find a way to make it not matter, to neutralize it. So that's why I loved, I was in TikTok, from early days, and I got into Web3, and I was getting into NFTs and DAOs and all that, and then they crashed the whole market. Like it's the same playbook. Every time we start to get ahead, it gets suppressed. So now that's why I only work on a hyper local level, because they're not there. That's the only place they're not, because they can't be everywhere. But any like major system or structure, like when you try to change it from inside out, you think you're going to get some real progress and momentum, and then it just gets just destroyed. So now I'm very much into the true decentralization, hyper local level, and there's millions of us. We're just not truly connected. So I love what you're doing, and I have lots of ideas for you and suggestions and questions as well. So I know this is like the beginning of a conversation and a dialogue, but I I've been watching what you do, and I have a lot of, like I said, ideas and knowledge around this space. So ask me anything you want.
Oh, I'm excited. Yeah. And I love that you used the word hyperlocal. It's something that is very much in the zeitgeist right now, because I think people are realizing the only way we defeat the powers that be is if we are grassroots and shoulder to shoulder with our neighbors. Like, it really does start on a local community level, and in a way that almost seems at odds with social media, but it doesn't have to be. And that's one of the things that we're exploring. So I'm curious, hyper local, but you've got APEX DAO. So is your DAO local, and what's the function of it?
Yeah, so it's truly like we were one of the first DAOs in the country, like one of the first 500 to set up. It was really hard to actually set up all the smart contracts and everything. So we got that. So I'm working on a hyper local level here in Greenville, South Carolina, but I have a global network, literally. So I talk to people all over the world at any point, like through Zoom calls, which is great. So I know a lot of different people who are specialists and experts, but my vibe is kind of being a hyper generalist with three main expertise around AI on the UX and the building side, around sustainability or regenerative economics, and then around system design, like processes. Like, I'm very much into designing systems for everything and processes, context, content, and framing. So yeah, we're working on a super hyper local level here, working with colleges, with technical colleges, with skills building, with education, with creators, with a modeling agency, with publishers, with you name it. Like, I build a very eclectic group, and I bring people together who would never meet. That's just kind of what I do, and just organically. And we're doing some really cool stuff here in Greenville. But I do it so it's repeatable. And then I'm doing it so we can bring money from outside in, right? Because that's the whole thing. Is I learned how to create wealth, how to create value, how to create. And that's, instead of like asking for a handout, no, you got to go create it, So I just started writing a book, started doing a Substack, start building this, create NFTs. Like, we can create value of our own. And then when you show other folks how to do it, I do a lot of stuff with food. I did a lot of stuff back in New York before I moved here. And once you can control your own food supply, game changer, freaking game changer. Because you spend, how much money do you spend on garbage food? And then you pay on the other side on terms of like what it does to our health, right? So once you control and you have good organic food, that's a game changer. And they don't have, I thought the South would be like phenomenal for food. Oh no, it's garbage here. It's all fast food restaurants. And even like I go to the farmer's market and I'll pay more. I don't care. I can't eat the garbage.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds like you've been on the cutting edge of things for a really long time. You said you were one of the first 25 DAOs in the
500. One of the first 500.
500. Well, that's still that makes you an OG, I think, an original gangster in that space. Yeah. And then you have this really eclectic DAO, but what is the mission of the DAO? Are you teaching people about Web3, DAOs, NFTs? Is it primarily educational?
Education is definitely at the core, right? Cool. So I teach folks how to leverage AI, but I'd say the biggest thing that I teach people is how to learn. I don't just teach them like the programming it. I'm finishing up a 10-week course, an immersion course, 10 entrepreneurs or founders. Half of them are women. The women kick the boys' butts up and down, because they ask the right questions. They work together. They're trying to build stuff. They're spending more time on it, and they're far away and ahead and above of the boys, the men, whatever. But I teach them how to learn. So how to teach themselves afterwards, how to ask the right questions, how to use the AI to bounce stuff off of to learn more. And they all had businesses. Most of the women had at least 2 businesses, a for-profit and non-for-profit. So they're getting to use it in real time, and then they're testing it out. And one woman just got back from a sales conference, which is her old world, and she was teaching all these women about how to use AI. But also the biggest thing was women were like, we can't use it. It's not ethical. We can't. They're like, no, you have to use it. Because you know who's not doing that? Men. They're using the heck out of it. You have to use it. Get over that, right? And like she showed them how to build a custom GPT, how to do low code in Lovable, and all the stuff that I showed her. She came in knowing nothing, but she's using it, and that's what I'm saying. Like, but now, she still have that imposter syndrome, which everyone admits. I have that sometimes too, but it's getting over that fear, and you can do that when you build something, because it doesn't work until it does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I'm saying, coming out in my second book, the AI cookbook, I have a prep prep, cook, serve methodology. I break everything down. I got an online course that I'm doing, all, self-paced, and I'll do the small cohorts. Only going to do, medium and advanced, and I'll have someone else train them to do the basics. So I'm always building a supply chain. I'm building an ecosystem, but the through point is always, yes, teaching people how to learn. So I'll focus in on, sustainability, which has now really evolved into regenerative economics. And everything I can build, I'm building calculators, I'm building dashboards, I'm showing people how to build the dashboards, I'm explaining it, I'm showing them the metrics. I break everything complicated down to things that they can understand. I do that through metaphors. AI cookbooks, I use cooking methodologies, metaphors, prep, cook, serve, keeping everything to 3. So I come from my mom was a teacher, a real educator. My great aunt was a vice principal in the Bronx, so they taught me so much outside of school, and they taught me how to learn and how to love to learn. So that's all I'm doing. I'm just channeling them and passing that on. And if I'm teaching something that I love, then I'm in that flow state. So
amazing.
I teach about Web3, DAO, whatever. Right now, I'm teaching AI because it's such a multiplier for your skills and for your earning potential. And everything is putting through a monetization lens so that people can earn money.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear when people are really excited about AI, and I'm glad to hear more of that. I think a lot of people are like terrified, and this idea that AI is going to replace a lot of the workforce. And I don't see it that way. I see it as something that is leveling the playing field and lowering the barrier to entry all over. Like, people are going to have more opportunity than they ever would. Just yesterday, I had a list of 120 cold leads, and I had to look through every single one of them at the code on their website to determine whether or not it was a WordPress site so that I could pitch a certain service to them. And I was like, this is going to take me 4 hours if I spend 2 minutes on each of these. And then I went to ChatGPT and I was like, hey, can I code this in Python? And if so, how? I don't know a lick of code, right? Within 30 minutes, I taught myself that. And those 30 minutes saved me 3.5 hours. So that's the kind of thing, like, you have to be using this right now, because that is what everyone else is going to be doing. And the great thing about it is that it is, I think, going to lead to this overall decentralization of power, because people are going to be able to create businesses and products and do things that they otherwise would not have. And so I see it as the great leveler.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I look at it as like, augmentation, right? It's augmenting what we do. So I still always work with, I don't know if you watch my recent video, but I'll do stuff on a whiteboard. I'll draw sketches and diagrams on paper so I can always document. I'm the creator. Then I take a picture of it, I put it into chat and have it convert over to a nice visual. Cool, but I'm the creator. Let's get it straight. And that's what I encourage other people to do. Same thing with voice. I'm using this cool program called Whisper Flow, and I got the pro version. So any application, you can talk to it. Because I used to type so much, right? Coming from Wall Street and mouse and everything. So I just don't want to type anymore. So I'm now talking and saying at 139 words per minute. And I've talked just in the last 6 weeks, the equivalent of 2 seasons of podcasts. Just into my AI systems. And I do a lot of, like I said, low code, no code, like v0.dev, Cursor, Lovable. I teach those 2. I'd prefer v0.dev because I am a coder myself, not a software engineer, a coder. And I just can talk to it and tell it what it wants. But I do my research in Perplexity, then I go into chat, I build everything out. And then from there, I go to Claude, I build up my prompts, and I copy my prompts, and I put them into v0.dev, and then it's like 80% there, and then I just talk for the last couple of stuff. I'm building full-blown websites, and then all you have to do is deploy them and host them. So I've created about 14 different, MVPs so far.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's the future. You're obviously very well versed in the technical side of things. And I've got a question about DAOs in particular.
Yep.
Which is it possible to divorce the DAO structure from smart contracts? Like, is everything being done on chain? Because from my understanding, it's actually really expensive to run it that way. But I'm a total newbie to the DAO world. We obviously have to figure it out for Tao Social, which is a big part of the reason I wanted to connect, is to start to speak with people who are experts and are going to have more insight into the best way to do something like that at scale. So I'm really curious how you do that with smart contracts, and if it's possible to do it not on the chain initially, or if it's pretty standard to stick to smart contracts. Like, I'm curious what that world is like.
Sure. So, and I'll give it to you. So you don't have to overcomplicate it, right? So the governance rules are literally you could write on paper. Literally, okay. Right? That's your governance rules. So I have literally the hard copy of the DAO of DAOs. So that was the original website that was going to be, it was being built before they crashed everything, where you could start up a new DAO and they would let you run it kind of like, you know, what Squarespace or Google would do for a domain. They were going to be able to do that with DAOs. And all of a sudden they disappeared. But before they did, I literally downloaded and printed out their manual. So I'm happy to share that with you. It literally is the blueprints of how to do this. So it's all about the structure first. So how you want to run it. So what a lot of folks, you know, I've copied that over. So the founder starts up the whole business. You're taking on the risk just like a traditional founder entrepreneur. So, you know, whatever time you want to get paid back in, I'm doing 40%. So whatever the profits are, 40% are going to come back to me until I get back to my original investment. I literally sold my house and invested $100,000 into the APEX DAO. So I'm getting all that money back and a straight, you know, 20% interest on that over the last 3 years. And I think that's fair. Once that is paid off, I'm going to go back to 20%, right? So that's 20% that'll always go to me as the founder. And that's part of taking the risk and starting it up.
Mm-hmm.
And you figure out what you want to do with that other 80%. So I'm doing, I think 20% goes into treasury, and then another 10% is going into bioregional and indigenous projects. That's just our mission. I'm very upfront about that. And everything else gets split pro rata with the members. So 10 members, you know, they each get 10%, right, of whatever that pool is. More members come in, you split it. But as more members come in, you should be making more money.
Yeah.
The entire structure of our governance model. It's that simple. Now, one person, one vote. And then after that, people come in, anything else that we want to change around our policy, they get to vote on. I have one vote. I'm not going to have a super veto. I'm not, because I'm going to bring in people early on that I'm like, all right, if they make a vote, I'm going to stick by it. But with that structure, you're not going to go in 20 different directions and no one can come in and say, I bought 1,700 Bitcoin. So no, one member, one vote. So it's literally majority rules. And you can set it up however you want. I'm just giving you our structure. And I studied this stuff early on. And then I also want to have something, I'm proposing something around people contribute more, they should get an extra vote. So if everyone's sitting around and collecting, cool. But if other people are doing more work and contributing measurably, they should get more of a vote and say. And I think that's fair. So it's kind of like proof of work for real, not some stupid, complicated modeling mathematics like, Bitcoin is created, which is a total waste of energy. It's no, people proving that they contributed to APEX DAO in some way, shape, or form. That's the entire governance structure. So no, you don't have to spend a lot of money doing it. And that is written simply with an NFT contract, and every person buys a mission coin, and it's proof that they are a member. It's proof that they're on in our DAO and on that blockchain. And then if you want, you can issue more coins. So they're literally buying into it. And if they want, they can sell that coin, and then they get their money back, and 10% goes back into the pot. So every time anything is traded or sold, you just bake that into the smart contract. None of that's really expensive. And I'm literally setting up our own Web3 banking system that you're free to use to get started. And
wonderful. Yeah.
So we're going to be able to do NFT collections. We work with local artists, again, local artists to design them. And every time those get resold, the local artist gets 10%, which is really cool. We can do entire collections of NFTs. We can do just single mission coins, like for certain projects. And you can stake, meaning you put your coin up and then you earn interest. So all of this, like I said, was baked out many, many years ago, and it still holds true.
Amazing. When did you start APEX DAO?
2021. I
Okay,
think 2022 was official, but around 2021, I remember doing all the paperwork, and Wyoming was the only place that I could do it.
Yeah, that's where we're just the LLC right now. We'll do the DAO part once we figure out more on like the governance frameworks side of things. But Wyoming was like the place that made sense. Of all places, it seems so random.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea why it's cow country?
Oh, well, there's a lot of money there. And
is there? Okay.
Yeah, so they looked at Delaware. It's like Delaware makes a lot of easy money just by hosting that. Tennessee wanted to do it, but they just couldn't get their shit together.
Fair. Very interesting. How many people are a part of APEX?
About a dozen.
A dozen. Cool.
Not a lot of active members at this point. I'm literally having a call tomorrow to onboard 4 new people through Substack that are just because I write, so that's why I'm attracting in the people with the right vibe.
Mm-hmm. That's the way to do it. You put out content and
through TikTok
resonates with that, and yeah, for sure. And how did you get connected with Jess?
It's either Substack or TikTok. I think we're on both.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah,
it's
there's that kind of symbiotic ecosystem between Substack and TikTok. I love it.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because yeah, she was doing some stuff, and then I don't know if she messaged me or I messaged her, but or we were like commenting on each other's videos, just how it goes.
Cool. What's the kind of end goal with Apex? What's the vision?
Well, unlike a company, I don't want to sell, right? So really to build up a membership where there could be, 1 million people on there, and they're, can make enough money that they don't have to work, 9 to 5 slave jobs.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing that I think AI is going to do for us, because regarding 9 to 5 slave jobs, I mean, already we're seeing companies lay off people, right, and try to replace them with AI in some cases. And the gift in that is that other people are going to go on to start businesses. And what's going to happen in my head, anyway, this is the way that I see it playing out, is we've typically operated in such a way that all of our resources are channeled up to the top because we are all like cogs in a wheel in these systems. But with AI, yes, replacing some of those jobs, people are going to be forced to create alternate systems and other businesses. And if we buy from our neighbors and on this other level, then it creates an entirely different kind of economy. I think that's the direction the world is going to move.
Absolutely. And that's a big part of my book, right? Co-creating the future, the regenerative economics. And it's setting things up by bioregion. So you're actually working with the local indigenous cultures there. You're working with your land, whatever your resources are. And then when you set up something you can trade, you're going to connect with another bioregion, another regenerative economic zone.
Tell me more about regenerative economics. I don't think I understand regenerative agriculture, so I could take a guess, but curious, how do you define that and how does it play out?
Yeah. So, I mean, you are very familiar with extractive economics.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we live it. Yeah.
So it's literally it's not just the reversed opposite, but it's looking into studying, again, it comes from indigenous economics, which is actually like, oh, okay, what is the land here telling me I should grow, as opposed to trying to bring in some foreign species. Okay, how can I work with my natural resources in terms of land, water, with air, and with the food supply? How can I embrace matriarchal principles, literally? How can I work within community? How can I say, how can I help? How can I listen more than talk? So those are like philosophically the things, but in terms of like the practical day-to-day stuff, it is just that. Okay, so instead of what I want to definitely do is replace fast food restaurants, well, the best way to do that is to support local businesses. Well, what if there's not enough local businesses? All right, well, we have to give them money. Okay, well, some of the best businesses, practically speaking, are, I'm going to cut down the tree ethically, and I'm going to chop it up and sell it for firewood. So you're going to pay me to take out a tree, but then someone else is going to pay me to do the firewood. The same thing with mulch. The same thing with plastics. So how can we take all the plastics that's not being recycled in Greenville? Greenville doesn't recycle. How can we take those plastics, sift through it, see what's actually recyclable, what can be turned into good ethical biofuel, and then sell that? Like taking all these opportunities that are here, instead of saying, okay, what do I need to import from China for cheap $5 t-shirts to sell at a $10 margin? Like that is extractive capitalism. It was like, what are the natural opportunities here? The fact that we don't have public transportation here, crazy. But what could we do more? Well, what if we could create our cities and design them so that we could walk more? Well, okay, what is in our neighborhoods and communities that would cause us to be able to walk or bike as opposed to driving 20 minutes in every single direction? Well, the biggest thing is you'd want to start like a small general store. That small general store should be working with people from the farmers market. They're already producing goods. So it's everything is on the table. If kids are leaving here to go to college, to go find a job, like that's not a sustainable model. What opportunities can we give children here, by the time they get to high school, so they're working with intergenerational, older, good ethical, again, I always put ethical men to say, hey, let me show you how to swing a hammer. Let me show you how to build something with your hands. Let me show you how to build a house. Let me show you how to do plumbing, wiring, whatever, giving them real practical skills. Now if they build that, could they stay there? Okay, well, what if we did as an eco-village? Well, how cool is that? If we're going to do an eco-village, how are we going to do that to be zero waste? How are we going to measure, net carbon? Those are all big questions. When you lean into that, you find out all the problems in the area. So it's no cookie cutter solution, and it has to be done for your region, it has to be done for your community, it has to be done for your neighborhood, it has to be done within your zoning laws. And you'll find out all the things, the resistance that you run into. And so being able to overcome that, but you work as a community.
Yeah, I love that. I think that that's absolutely the future. It's funny that you mentioned that, like the kind of typical business model of buying something from China, marking it up by 100 and whatever percent, and then selling it here. I had early on seen the opportunity with Amazon FBA, and I'd started to go into it, and I just like, it did not feel right to me. And I think that there's something so important about innovating in our communities and in our homes that can have just a really like direct impact on the world around us. And one of the things that we've been talking about with Tao is the possibility of potentially funding innovations. So the idea, right, is that all profit is reinvested into the community, but what does that look like? That doesn't mean that everyone on the platform gets like $5 at the end of the year, right? Instead, it's like, how do we put it toward systemic change, or what do we collectively want to fund? There was a video that went viral a few months ago. I think my mom sent it to me, and it was this man who had created like a double helix windmill. And, you know, with normal windmills, they're not that always that energy efficient because it totally depends on the direction of the wind. And so a lot of times they're just like still. But what he had constructed would catch wind from any angle, and beautiful. It almost looks like a sculpture. And I was like, you know, it's so cool that TikTok can surface ideas and innovations like that. But what would make the platform even better is if people could secure grants for things like that. Like people can look at that and be like, that's really cool. Would love to see that, you know, done at scale. Like, how can we fund that? And I think that there's the possibility, if you had a social media platform that did have this like investment pool of those funds going into worthwhile innovations, and like, how could we do that on a, what was a bioregion level? You used the term bioregion. Yep. Yeah. So, and I think that like, when I think of social media reaching its full potential, it has to be interconnected to our communities and to positive innovation. So yeah, a lot of what you just said there resonated with me.
That's awesome. So I'll give you 3 projects that I'm working right now that kind of play into that, right? So one is, there's a woman in Asheville, North Carolina that I connected with on Substack, and now she came down. We had a wonderful lunch. She's starting up a new reality fund, which is, instead of like alternative investing, I said, no, it's the new normal investing. The focus will be on the region between Asheville, North Carolina and Greenville, South Carolina. So now you know where your dollars are going, right? And she's going to say, okay, and it's not just dollars, but also you're investing in that community project so people can go and take a look at that project, right? And she's very open to doing that, you know, with a pathway to Web3, meaning NFTs and mission coins, because the future is digital. Like, we're not going to be having paper dollars in 10 years from now. It's just not going to be the same thing. So we have to prepare ourselves. And again, because of the corruption that's going on right now, I'm very, you know, cognizant of that. Like, I'm not like touting Bitcoin or whatever. Like, no, because it's still being run by a bunch of corrupt people. So we have to see where it goes. But if we're doing our own mission coins, well, we can control that. We can make sure that that's ethical, and you can see exactly where your money's going based on a real project, as opposed to, oh, buy this, ape coin, and it all of a sudden it goes to $1 million. Like, that's just, you know, snake oil 101. But having a project that then says, oh, well, this is going into a permaculture project, and there's folks that we're working with called Kinship Earth Flow that's backed by Marion Rockefeller, who wants to do all this flow funding, meaning instead of doing, you know, what you're talking about, people have large amounts of money, instead of just shelling out philanthropically, writing checks and not really knowing where it's going to, what impact is, how can we have that money flow into the right people and the right projects? And the smaller it is, you're looking at the person you're giving the check to, and then you're looking at the project that it's going to, as opposed to giving it to, you know, the Ford Foundation. Who knows where that money goes? 70 cents gets eaten up in bureaucracy and administrative costs. But when you go to a small entrepreneur on the ground, it goes directly into that community, and it goes directly into that project. So those are the things we're looking at. The second thing is, I just built out a whole community wealth building game and the entire engine behind it. So you could I looked at 3 different, you know, audiences: athletes, educators, and creators. All struggle, right? What do they have to do? You're not a D1 athlete on scholarship. You're working DoorDash, you're working in the cafeteria, you're working at the second, third job just to cover your stuff. Well, what if you could get paid? You know, you could do a challenge where you're running barefoot, and it's sponsored by Vivo Barefoot, but you take the picture of you doing that video and you post it, and you earn money and you earn mission coins. And then other people could do, and you can imagine where we could go with that. But it's the same thing with composting, with doing something, you know, for earth, for soil, for air. All of that is around challenges. Challenges go viral because the people who are doing it are doing the hard work. We don't even need to post the video. They're posting the video. You know, 1 billion people did the Ice Bucket Challenge. They raised peanuts compared to the amount of energy that went into that. But it showed the power, right, of challenges. So challenges are great, especially if it's a 30-day challenge or a 90-day challenge, because it's consistent, and people in those communities, you know, especially artists, creators, and athletes have large followings. So they're posting that. So that's something we could work with Tao Social for. It's easy to do, but we're also doing it, and the entire dashboard, which I'll show you, has all the impact in terms of economics. You can see exactly, the athlete can choose how many hours a day they want, and it'll show how much more they'll make per month. And it's usually like a couple $1,000, depending on how many hours, how consistent they are, and they get to choose all their challenges. Same thing with educators. How many stories do we see of young women having to work a second job to buy school supplies that the school should be funding? You know, like, we know where the money's going and we know where the money's not going. This solves that. But also we're doing an economic impact, an environmental impact, and then a societal impact. And we're measuring everything. Analytics are very powerful because you can see where it goes. And then the sponsors, again, you only work with ethical sponsors. They'll sign up in droves because you see all the dashboard of, like, the return on investment, the return on energy, all the sentiment analysis, all the views, like, all of that is there transparently. They don't have access to that. They don't. They get some, you know, BS report that says how great things are going, but most of the times it's not. It's smoke and mirrors. This would be very real. And we have a mobile game for that.
Is that an MVP, or is it, so it's out?
No,
is it in, oh, it's not out. So
yeah, I can show you. I can show it to you.
Yeah, I'd be super curious.
Yeah, I'll send you a link. You can totally do that. And it's all, yeah, as you know, I'm neurodivergent, so a lot of the stuff that I do is neurodivergent design first, which is the curb cut effect. If you do it for neurodivergence, it works better for everybody. So it has this great settings that you could, like, you can reduce the clutter on the screen. You can you can make it dark instead of light. You can, like, all this stuff that matters to us, but other people are like, hey, that's cool too. So it doesn't impact anyone negatively, but it benefits everyone positively.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to give you that. So when you look at it, make sure you go check the settings on the mobile app, 'cause it's pretty cool.
I'll do that. What's the third one?
Let me see. Reality Fund. Oh, the thing that I'm working with Jess on, the connection engine. So it's plugging into, she's setting up like 300 different creators and influencers are going to be able to tell the story. So she was working on all this stuff, and she had like all these whiteboards and YouTube videos and like tons and tons of text. And I could put it through my entire AI tool stack, organize it, run it through all my different models, and then built her out a full MVP with everything organized, all interactive, all the different calculators, everything. So it's gonna save her months and months of work, like that.
It sounds like it. Wow.
Yeah, but she's
Very
gonna
cool.
help us, because the storytellers. I work with a lot of technical folks. Technical folks, unlike me, I've worked at it really hard, are terrible at storytelling, because they tell you the features and the functions. They don't tell you. They don't start with the why. They don't look at it from your perspective. This is how it's gonna be great for you. They don't use the metaphors. I've only done this because I'm a creator. Before I was a creator, I did the same thing. I dumped data on you, data, you know. But now I start with looking at how can I relate to you, listen to what you're saying, and try to relate how you could see this and how this would benefit. Like, infuse my why, but also think about your why as well, and then use, you know, relatable language and metaphors.
So I just started hearing about the connection engine. I don't fully understand what it is. I understand that it's related to the Community Wealth Initiative, but what is it? I
mean, I don't want to steal her thunder, but it's very much that we're not able to tell our story. So she's building a platform where small creators can grow into larger creators by doing this storytelling, because community wealth building is just not getting a fair rap. But when you actually see what's going on all across the country and all across the world, because everyone's like, oh, when's it going to happen? She's like, it's already happening, but no one's telling the story. So they're building the technical platform to allow anyone to be able to tell that story.
Cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
I think it's the connecting of all the, because we're all separate. We're bringing it together, which is the same thing. So it would work perfectly with Tao Social.
Yeah, I definitely see that.
I don't think she's trying to do what you do, but I think she's trying to build the infrastructure to bring all the people together.
It's going to be important. I think we're going to need each other. So
Yeah.
yeah,
We're
totally.
finding each other, which is great.
That's a great way to put it. One of my designers, she's so funny. When the Tau team started to pull together, she was like, I feel like we all separated when the mothership crashed and we're all finding each other again. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly the feeling right now.
Yep.
That's so funny.
That's well put. That's well put.
Yeah, I think we live in some pretty transformative times.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's the extinction burst, right? It's the folks who like don't want to give up on the power, and you see them like grasping at straws, but they're losing because they're all incompetent, they're all corrupt, and they're only there by protectionism, right? What is the patriarchy? What is white supremacy? It's protecting their incompetence.
I think it's very much a death and rebirth cycle that we're in the middle of. You've mentioned indigenous culture a few times. Have you seen the documentary Time of the Sixth Sun?
Mm-mm.
You might enjoy it. So Toltec prophecy, but there's been prophecies on either side of the Atlantic from indigenous cultures who were talking about the shift in consciousness that would happen. And I believe that we're living through it. A lot of people marked 2012 as kind of the beginning of that unfolding. People expected it to happen overnight, right? But this stuff is never a light switch. It unfolds like a very long season. And this time that we're living in is literally stewarding us into what the hippies would call the new earth, right? And it's interesting the parallels we see in the Christian book of Revelation. Like there's been all of this prophecy around the time that we are now on the precipice of, and it's a very exciting time to be alive. So you might enjoy that documentary. I think it's right up your alley.
What was it called again?
Time of the Sixth Sun.
Time of the Sixth Sun. All right,
I'll send you a link. It's free online.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cool.
What's the timing for your beta program coming out?
So I'm working on getting our Duns and Bradstreet. That is the email that I'm sending right after this so we can get it into the App Store. So we've got a closed beta coming this month. The moment we're ready to start inviting people, I'll be sure to send you a link. We will hopefully open it up to it. We're looking May maybe for a more open beta, but our tech lead is taking 2 weeks off. He's going to be, I think, in Ireland is what he was saying, which is very exciting. But we do have a closed beta coming this month, and then we're going to move as quickly as we can. It's a little bit tough with volunteers, right, and no capital, but the fact that we knocked this out in what, 2.5 months. The idea went viral in January. The team was pulled together by early February, and then we had February, March. And now it's the beginning. We're like the middle of April. So yeah, like 2.5 months, I think that we did pretty well, all things considered. And then we'll see how this goes. And I'm orchestrating the pieces that are going to be necessary to get us through fundraising, because it's going to be entirely crowdfunded. So maybe the summer for that, fall at the latest is kind of what we're looking at. So we'll see the great wide unknown with this one.
So entirely crowdfunded. So you wouldn't take any big donations?
We would take donations, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wouldn't take, well, and that's a great point, because you had mentioned the Rockefeller woman who you said was like funding something, and if it is philanthropic, we could accept it. It's not like by principle we won't take rich people's money. That's not it at all. And I don't think that wealthy people are the enemy at all. That's something that people have kind of or something kind of narrative to what it is we're doing, and that's not it. There's a lot of people who want to see the world be a better place, and people who do have wealth and are philanthropic could absolutely play a role in that, and a lot of them want to. So it's more so that we're not accepting investment because we need to not be beholden to anyone's profit agenda or any kind of like, governance kind of control. So that's what we're avoiding by not accepting investment, but absolutely philanthropic donations would be most welcome.
Totally get that. So I'm having lunch again with, her name is Lisa, who started the New Reality Fund. But what if, and you could run this by Marion Rockefeller and others as well. What if like they were buying like $10,000 mission coins?
Interesting. So you're saying fund it with crypto? No?
I mean, yeah, it's crypto, but it's really just, it's a mission coin is literally just a digital coin, but allows you to get the money. And they have something of value, of stored value. So it's an NFT. So yeah, it's technically crypto, but I also when I hear crypto, I think of, just purely, Bitcoin and Solana and all those stuff. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the crypto market right now. So I don't think it is technically crypto. I think it is it's a store of value, right? So it's much more of an asset, a mission coin. It's a very dedicated purpose as opposed to something you can't trade it on the open exchange. You can
What
only
do you
trade.
think? Yeah, so I would love to learn more about that. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Sorry, I didn't realize we were 10 minutes over. But I don't know much about NFTs or mission coins or any of this. I can do a little bit of homework. I'm going to go watch a ton of your content. And then would you want to set up something more formal to talk specifically about things like mission coins, DAOs, all the rest? I would love to do that.
Let's do that. I can also like do a screen share if we do Zoom. It's a lot easier for me. And then I can walk you through the different MVPs, and then might be better, and then send you the links, and then you can look at them on your own. But you can also watch the video afterwards.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds great. Sweet. Well, Michael, it was lovely to meet you. I'm very excited for what's happening in the world right now, even though it kind of looks like chaos on the outside. I think that we all know what this could lead to, the kind of perhaps solar punk utopia future that awaits us, who knows. But yeah, it's been really fun connecting with people who kind of share this brighter vision for the future. So thank you.
Thank you. I need this as well, right? Keep me going.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Awesome. Well, we will be in touch, and have a great day.
You as well. All right. Bye.
Bye.